Mashpaca, mashpaca, haha, shalom, shalom, shalom. Welcome, mashpaca. What an exciting video we have today. A truly exciting video. I rejoiced the entire time making this, and without further ado, we're gonna get right in. This may be, one of my favorite videos that I'll ever create. Power of Yahuah's Ruach. I've been able to put together what I think is a wonderful presentation. What is the narrow path and how do we walk upon it? Whose narrow path? Yahuah's, our creator's, our father's narrow path in which he sets out before us. And we're gonna go deep into things, the narrow path, and then of course the other side of the coin, which is the broad path. But before we get into things, I want to quickly give all esteem, honor, and barakah, respect and favor to our Father Yahuah. I am just a vessel of Yahuah's, shining his beautiful Besorah, his beautiful words, his Torah, his statutes and commandments bright. To all of those, you guys with eyes to see and ears to hear. Let's get into it. This is going to be an awesome one. What is the narrow path and how do we walk upon it? Our Messiah, Yahushua, who came here on earth as a human embodiment of our Father Yahuah. So they're one in the same being. They're the same being. Yahushua, our Messiah, is just a human embodiment in flesh who came here on earth. He told us straight to our faces that his path is narrow and that few find it. All right? This is what it means to be a chosen one. Being a chosen one isn't some big ego hit or prideful thing where you go around telling everyone, I'm chosen and you're not. No. It just simply means that our Father, Yahuah, chooses us. He chooses us. He takes away our own breath and we are born from above with his breath, which is the Ruach HaKodesh, which is his set apart breath, family. So that's just what it means to be a chosen one. I'm not going to try and veer off too much, but yes, that's few find it because Yahuah chooses us. Our one true creator chooses us as his children. Furthermore, he says, broad is the way that leads to destruction. All right, so we know his path is narrow, few find it, and broad is the way that leads to destruction. Like I always say, this isn't my opinion, this isn't my words, this is Yahuah's words, straight from scripture. So let's get into it. This is Matthew 7, verses 13 to 14. So this is Yahushua, HaMashiach, our Messiah, speaking right here. Here as he came here on earth and spoke to his Talmudim, his disciples. This is his words, all right? Not mine. Enter you in at the narrow gate. For wide is the gate, and broad is the way that leads to destruction, and many there be which go in thereat. Because narrow is the gate, and troublesome is the way which leads to life, and few there be that find it. So there we go. His path is narrow, narrow is the gate, and few there be that find it. All right? While wide is the gate and broad is the way that leads to destruction, and many will find it. All right? Where the next slide's going to go into exactly a bit more about, how we can see that in modern day example, the broad way and the path that, yes, leads to destruction. But let's quickly break this down. All right? So Yahushua is speaking his parables and his statutes, his teachings to all that are willing to hear and the Talmudim, right? And he says, enter you in at the narrow gate. So he's straight away saying, if you're listening to me, I tell you to enter in at the narrow gate because that is my gate. That's the gate of my Father, Yahuah. And then he says, for wide is the gate and broad is the way that leads to destruction. We're going to talk about that in the next slide more specifically, all right? But what I wanted to break down is this. Because narrow is the gate and troublesome is the way. What do we think he means when he says troublesome is the way? It means that through your journey, there will be trials and tribulations through your journey upon Yahuah's straight and narrow path, the narrow path that Yahushua HaMashiach is speaking of right here. He's saying troublesome is the way. That means that there are going to be trials, there are going to be tests, and there will be deceptions and ways that the devil, Hashatan himself, is going to come and try and force transgression upon your path, especially in the early days, all right? There's too many things and times I could name where I've, by the will of Yahuah, identified little things that have come upon my path that I have to like sit back for a second and think, hang on, is that from Yahuah or is it actually from Hashatan? And many things that seem good and awesome that are of this world, a lot of those are actually coming from Hashatan himself, the devil, trying to deceive us and lead us away from the narrow path. All right, think about it, right? If Yahuah, our creator's plan for us, his children, is to lead us upon a narrow path that we're very just focused on, that we're not looking this way, we're not looking that way, we're just looking this way, right? What is going to be the evil one, the devil's, what's going to be his desire and plan? It's going to be to lead us off that path and onto a broad path where we're looking this way, this transgression, this way at that transgression. It's going to be to steer us away from Yahuwah's straight, narrow path. All right? That's what it means by troublesome is the way. It means that you're going to go through spiritual warfare. There will be attacks. Your closest ones, your family themselves, are going to be used to try and steer you off this path. It's got nothing to do with them. It's got all to do with Hashatan, the evildoer, the devil, that will use our closest people to try and steer us off this path, because unfortunately, if they're not in this truth, if they're not in the truth in the name of Yahuah and Yahushua HaMashiach, then they are of this world, which means that they can quite easily use just very common transgressions to steer us off course. Acts that we're specifically told, and we're going to read it in scripture now, to not take part in, to not do. They, lead us down that broad path in which, we were just speaking of, in which Hashatan, the evildoer, the devil, wants us to be brought down, right? Another good example is if you're keeping Shabbat, but you're with other people that aren't keeping it, and they all want to go out to have lunch, and they're just absolutely trying to drag you along. Oh, come on, your father, your creator won't mind if you come and have lunch with us. Like how can that be a sin? How can that be a transgression? How can that be wrong? But it's a day that's meant to be kept set apart for our Father, as each and every day is meant to revolve around our Father. But we know that Shabbat is specifically, he's made that an appointed time. Those are just some examples of how common things of this world can be used to steer us off that narrow path. All right. Next slide. What is the most broad religion in the world? All right, now we're going back to the broad path that leads to destruction. Can you have a guess what it is? I don't even need to say it, all right? We know here, it's Christianity. 2.4 billion people under this one hat of deception, this one umbrella of pagan worshipping. Hang on, I'm not trying to attack anyone. This isn't my opinion. You can look it up. Why is it pagan worshipping? Because this entire cult, religion, whatever you want to call it, the whole Extian, CHURCH, I'm just going to say it for the sake of this video, the whole Extian church is literally built around a pagan sun worshipper, Constantine, the Roman Empire, who, by the way, are the same ones that put Yahuwah's children, Yasharel, us, through misery. Deep this. 1/4 of the world's population, of this earth's population, lies under the hat. You can see it here. There's 8 billion people, 2.4 billion. Let's even just say 2 billion, right? For sake of argument. That's 1/4 of this earth that lies under one hat of deception, of transgression. In fact, this seems to match up perfectly with the broad path of destruction. Do you honestly think that the higher up elites of this world, meaning, all the big organizations, media outlets, pharmacy businesses, who literally are the orchestrators of this exact religion, right? You can research all of it. They control what gets pushed out to us. Do you really think they'd be happy with 1/4 of the entire world's population being in the truth, just having pure truth and being redeemed? No, they do not want that. All right. So This is exactly why Yahuah says his path is narrow, because he has mapped and planned everything out perfectly. He knows right now that the system, the matrix, whatever you want to call it, that is running this earth looks at the broad picture. They look at the broad picture. What is the broad majority of people doing? We want them doing exactly what we want them doing, all right? Not what the Savior wants them doing, which is walking uprightly, not transgressing, not fornicating, not going out getting super drunk and, making all these alcohol businesses profit. Let's go on. In the book of Revelation, Yahuah made it clear to John in his vision that his nation, which is the children of Yasharel, and therefore his path, is narrow and only a small portion. All right, so we've got the figure now of the broad path that leads to destruction. Let's get an idea of the number of the narrow path, right? So this is Revelation, Chazon 7, chapter 7, verses 2 to 4 and verses 14. And I saw another heavenly messenger ascending from the east, having the seal of the living Yahuah, of the living mighty one. And he cried with a loud voice to the 4 heavenly messengers, to whom it was given to hurt the earth and sea, saying, Hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of Yahuah in their foreheads. And I heard the number of them which were sealed. I heard the number of the servants of Yahuah, those who have been worthy enough to be identified as Yahuah's servants. And there were sealed 144,000 of all the tribes of the children of Yasharel. So there's 12 tribes, 144,000 worthy enough to be called servants of Yahuah. It says here, till we have sealed the servants of Yahuah. I don't know about you guys, but I try my absolute best each and every day to walk as uprightly as I can, to shine Yahuah's light bright, to follow his commandments, his Torah, and understand his word with much wisdom, that I may be counted worthy as a servant, as a child of our fathers, Yahuah's. 144,000. We're talking billions on the broad path that leads to destruction. That sounds about right. Billions and broad. Now we're talking narrow, and we're talking like 1/10 of a million. It's starting to make sense. And this doesn't mean that only 144,000 are going to be redeemed and saved, because if we read Revelation, we see that Yahuah gives us multiple chances in the last days, let alone all the time that leads up to it, right? We don't know how much time we have. Could be as soon as tomorrow. But each and every day we're given a new opportunity to repent and to turn to Yahuah's name, to his path. But would you not much rather be part of this 144,000 that before anything even happens, this is chapter 7, so this is early on, right? Would you not much rather just be sealed and assembled securely by Yahuah, by Yahushua HaMashiach, the Lamb? Then we read in verse 14, these are they which came out of great tribulation. Boom, boom. Hang on, let's go a few slides back. What did we read? Troublesome is the way which leads to life. The narrow path is troublesome. Now we read, these are they which came out of great tribulation. So it backs it up perfectly. And have washed their robes, have repented and cleansed themselves of transgression, and made them white, made them pure in the blood of the Lamb. All right? In the new covenant that Yahushua, our Messiah, who shed his blood, he's the Lamb, he's the perfect Lamb offering. He shed his blood, and what happened when his blood spilled? It renewed and restored an eternal covenant between him and his children, where his Torah is written in our hearts. That means as children we walk uprightly upon the narrow path, and our robes are made white. There we go, perfect. And I looked, and lo, a Lamb stood on Mount Sion, and with him 144,000, having his father's name, Yahuah, written in their foreheads. So, how do we as children of Yahuah walk uprightly upon his straight and narrow path? Shaul, a worthy maid servant of Yahushua HaMashiach, We all know Saul, Paul of Tarsus, right? Says to Timothy. So he says this to one of his worthy, co-workers, essentially. Saul made him a scribe of his. So this is 1 Timothy chapter 4, verses 13 to 16. Till I come, give attendance to reading, exhortation, to doctrine. Neglect not the gift that is in you, which was given you by prophecy, with the laying on of the hands of the elders, the Ruach HaKodesh. Meditate upon these things. Give yourself wholly to them, that your profiting may appear to all. Take heed unto yourself and unto the doctrine, and continue in them. For in doing this you shall both save yourself and them that hear you. So Saul is giving Timothy instruction on how to walk upon Yahuah's straight and narrow path. The whole reason I chose this verse, and I was shared this verse by one of my lovely cousins, and when I read it, I just thought, oh, this is so fitting and such a straightforward and simple, straight, narrow, few verses that explain exactly how we can, as children of Yahuah, walk uprightly in his path. So let's go back to the question. How do we as children of Yahuah walk uprightly upon his narrow path? Reading what? His word, the Basora, his book that was given to us. To exhortation. What's exhortation? Shining bright as an example of Yahuah's child. Shining the word brightly upon all of those around you. All right? That doesn't mean you have to go to a street corner and just profess all day. No. This means that you are a beacon of Yahuah's word. So you read the word and then you exhort it. You eat of the spiritual food and then you share it with others. The formula to sharing it with others is as simple as you just living out the commandments and the statutes, the teachings and words of our Father, so much so that other people will surely start to take notice, and then they ask you questions. When someone asks you what you're doing on the coming Shabbat, seventh day, you tell them, oh, well, I actually keep the day set apart for our Father because he gave us this instruction. And that's all you have to say. And you've planted a seed. You've exhorted Yahuah's commandment, his word. All right, that's just an example, but just little things like that. All right, we as children of Yashar are to plant seeds for others to then become curious. And that seed that we plant in them out of their own curiosity, out of Yahuah's wonderful way that he aligns everything and chooses his children, may very well grow into a big mustard seed. And to give attendance to doctrine, all right? What we are taught by our Father, so of course we keep his commandments, we keep the feasts in which he's appointed to us. The set apart day is appointed for us each and every week, Shabbat. We keep this doctrine. Okay, so next line, we've got neglect not the gift that is in you. So Saul said to Timothy, neglect not the gift that is in you. For example, I'll give you a personal example. I have always loved being creative with making videos and edits and things like that. It's a gift that Yahuah has favored me with, and I'm extremely grateful to him, all esteem be to Yahuah, for giving me such a gift. Who would I be, family mashpaca, to not use a gift that has been given to me that can directly be used as a tool to shine Yahuah's light, to shine it bright? If you've got a certain gift and you can use it, use it. And that's what really makes us a worthy servant of his. And of course, meditating upon these things. So when you read upon his word, you meditate on it and think deeply about it. When you exhort his word, when you share it with others, you meditate on that and think deeply about how it is that you can plant such, beautiful seeds of Yahuah's, being patient and doing it in a manner that Yahuah would be proud of and that Yahuah would deem righteous. And meditating on doctrine and how it is that we can be strong in keeping these doctrines moving forward and be armored with the garments of Yahuah. For in doing these things above, you shall both save yourself and them that hear you. This is why it's important to exhort, and it's why I've put it in the same color. You're not just saving yourself family. And we don't do this purely just to be saved. We do this out of the love of our selfless, loving and caring Father. Our Messiah, who literally suffered a brutal death just for the cleansing of our own transgressions. When we, much like the 3,000, there's a story in the times of Moses where 3,000 children of Yashul just get absolutely killed because Moses comes down from talking to Yahuah there on the mountain, and he finds that the children of Yashul, because they haven't had Moses with them because he's been on the mountain talking to Yahuah, they've instead built some golden calf and worshipped. And so they've broken the commandment. You're not meant to worship idols. It's just Yahuah and Yahuah only. So Moses essentially commands those who have stayed true to Yahuah and his word and his doctrine to go out and kill the other, it was about the number 3,000 of Yahuah's children who had turned against him and worshipped these idols, a golden calf, instead of the Father who had just taken them out of the land of bondage, out of the land of Mitzrayim, out of the land of Egypt, out of the hands of Pharaoh. And so that could have very well happened again, as Yahushua HaMashiach was here on this earth, a living embodiment of our Father Yahuah, was here to teach us, to bring us out of transgression and to redeem us. Yet many of his children were deceived on the broad path. And so they did not look unto the narrow path of Yahushua. They thought he was a blasphemer and laughed at him and made joke of him. Yet Yahushua still said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they have done. And instead, he took all of the suffering. This is the way I like to look at it. He took all of the suffering that we, as his children who were still stuck in this pattern of transgression, and suffered it upon himself, all with the plan of a renewed and eternal covenant where we as his children have the chance to be redeemed and saved. Walking upon Yahuwah's straight and narrow path is an honor. It's an honor in itself that we now have the chance to be redeemed and to be looked at as worthy children. All right, so how do we walk uprightly? Continued. Whosoever therefore shall confess me before men, him will I confess also before my Father which is in the Shamayim, in heaven. But whosoever shall deny me before men, him will I, that's meant to be an I, not an extra L, also deny before my Father which is in the Shamayim. That's Matthew 10 verses 32 to 33. So what's the action that we can take? Confess Yahuah, our Father, our Creator, before men. This means if you're ever in a spiritual conversation with anyone, you must confess the name of Yahuah. If they ask you what you did on the weekend, you must speak of the set apart day. These are all things that I've learned in my own walk are just so important. When you know that our Father's true name is Yahuah and our Messiah, Yahushua, but you still, to fit in or whatever it might be, use the name God and JC, you will be denied. You will be denied before our Father. And the only way that you can change that is if you firstly repent and then make the effort to strictly just Yahuah. That's our Father, that's our Creator, that's his one true name. Yahushua, that's our Messiah, and that's his one true name. All right, now another witness, John chapter 3, verse 15, that whosoever believes in him should not perish but have eternal life. It's as simple as that. Here's something super important that I just have to mention. Believing is an action word. Believing is an action word. What is the action of believing? Well, it's right here. It's firstly gaining an understanding by reading and learning, and then it's exhorting. It's walking uprightly and making an example of the word that you're reading, that you're understanding, which is our Father's word, and following his doctrine and following his commandments. All right, the last slide of how we can walk uprightly. Guys, have a look. I'm literally giving you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 witnesses. Sorry, I'm not, but Yahuah and his Ruach has brought upon me to share with you guys 5 different accounts of how we can walk uprightly in his path. Put these all together and you have the formula. Again, it's just simple stuff. If you continue in my word, then are you my Talmudim indeed. Yahushua says to his disciples, continue in my word. So we don't stop. We don't learn everything within the space of 6 months or a year or 2 years or 3 years and then stop. We continue in his word. And you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. That's one of my favorite verses ever. That's John 8:31-32. All we have to do, family, is continue each and every day. Ask Yahuah to bring you something new, and he will. It's always exciting and never ending. We must continue in his word. We don't have a strict routine for 5-6 months and then just veer off into some other way. This is why it's a narrow path, because you never ever look any other way than the straight narrow path. That's exactly why it's a narrow path. Picture you're on train tracks, right? And they're straight train tracks and they just keep going. They just keep going. That's the straight narrow path. All right, you're not turning this way, you're not turning that way. One straight set of train tracks that you're just constantly going along. All right, we've got another John verse. If you guys can't tell, I really like John. Chapter 15, verse 18-19. If the world hates you, know that it hated me before it hated you. Yahushua said this. If you were of the world would love his own. But because you are not of the world, but I have chosen you out of the world, therefore the world hates you. Again, plain and simple. If you are of the world would love you. Meaning that if you were of transgression, if you were of this broad path that leads to destruction, the 2.4 billion, or not even just the 2.4 billion, but if you just are such a lover of this world and, I can get all my fulfillment from the things of this world, I don't need to think about what's after. You've got it all wrong. Now, that means you're of the world. What this means is that we are to not be of this world, but be of the world of the Father. So to be constantly looking forward to what's to come and rejoicing in it and gaining Hokman Binah, wisdom and understanding around Yahuwah's word and around his path and around how we can be made worthy servants of Yahuwah's. What not to do. So how can we avoid the broad path? I think this is important. All right, because we now know what to do. So what do we not do? Wherefore my sentence is that we trouble not them, which from among the other nations are turned to Yahuah, our mighty one, Yahuah. But that we write unto them, that they abstain from pollutions of idols, and from fornication, and from things strangled, and from blood. All right, so just for a bit of background, this is when Shaul and Barnabas were out preaching to the other nations in many languages. That was their mission. Their mission was to go out and spread the Besorah. They brought along Torah, which was right back to the days of Moses. And this Torah spoke also about more minor things like having to be circumcised, right? Back then, it was a literal thing, right? To be part of the called out assembly, you were to be circumcised. And so it came to be a bit of a burden for all these other nations who are hearing this word and are being filled with the Ruach and believing in the name and word of Yahuah and Yahushua HaMashiach, our master. But then, have these are grown men that now all of a sudden have to be circumcised. Yeah, just think about that, right? That's a burden. And then what happened is Peter, then said to Shaul and Barnabas, trouble them not. Don't give them this burden of having to do something that could potentially take them away now from this beautiful name of Yahuah that they've come into. But instead, write unto them that they abstain from pollution of idols. Don't give them a task that may be a burden to enter into the Makud of Shamayim, the kingdom of heaven, but instead make sure that they are not to transgress, that they are walking uprightly in the straight and narrow path. This is what is important, that they stay on the narrow path. Therefore, they abstain from pollution of idols. So, this goes back to doctrine. We are not to worship any other but Yahuah himself, our Yahuah, our mighty one, and our Yeshua, our salvation. No actors on the TV or social media influencers and YouTubers and all these people that we wish we had their lives, and no. We are to aim to be a worthy servant of Yahuwah, a worthy child who perchance may be made worthy of a seat at his table in Shamayim, in heaven. And that is what Yahuwah wants, not looking to any other idol, just looking on his straight, narrow path. And abstain from fornication. We're not meant to be out sleeping with women and doing all these things. No. If we are to have a partner, they are to be taught in the doctrine of Yahuwah and walk upon his path as well. And only then, when a marriage, so to speak, that's what is a worthy relationship to the Father. Not a relationship that is based off the things of this world and transgression and running up the body count. And no. All that stuff is just absolutely the lowest of the low to Yahuwah. And no, we want to be seen as worthy. And from things strangled. So this is now talking about, for instance, unclean preparation of meats and things like that. For instance, we know that we are to eat pasture-raised beef, grass-fed beef, meaning that, for instance, this is just an example, the cows are raised in a happy environment where they are holding positive, high vibrational energy throughout their lifetime, and then they are also slaughtered, I think it's by the throat, where the blood just comes out in the quickest and cleanest way possible, right? Because what happens when, for instance, chickens are strangled, then there's an element of fear and suffering they go through. Adrenaline goes through their body, creates a chemical which is harmful to us, which is deemed unclean by Yahuwah. And from blood, all right, that's just self-explanatory. That's obviously the commandment of not killing, all right? We are not to kill. That's the most obvious and worldwide known commandment. And also we are not to drink of the blood of other humans. And I think of any animal, so I think just drinking blood we are not to, because we are made pure by our own blood and by the living waters that is within us, which is Yahuwah's living waters, his energy, his flow, his own ruach, his own breath that comes in to purify our blood and our living waters. Stay strong, mashpaca. Let's wrap this up. I know this has been a longer one than usual, but wow, how amazingly important it is to walk uprightly upon Yahuwah's path, and to most of all be a worthy servant of his. And that's exactly how we are made a worthy servant, by walking uprightly along his straight, narrow path, and understanding what it means to be on that path, and how we stay on that path, and how we continue upon that path, and how we not veer off to the broad path. And what is the broad path? It's a path of destruction. We don't want that. We want the path of everlasting life. All right, we're going to end with my absolute favorite few verses. These are my favorite. The first set of verses that I ever memorized. Ecclesiasticus chapter 2, verses 1 to 5. When we talk about doctrine and statutes, Ecclesiasticus is full of awesome statutes. And this is probably one of my favorites. My son, if you come to serve Yahuwah, prepare your soul for temptation. Set your heart aright and constantly endure in the battle, and make not haste in time of trouble. Cleave unto him, cleave unto our Father, and depart not away. Don't leave when the going gets tough. No. That you may be increased at your last end. Just when you think it's all over and you're at rock bottom, that's when Yahuwah will increase you. Cleave unto him. Call out, Yahuwah. I know I shall endure. Yahuwah, come. Help. He will answer. He will increase you at your last end. Whatsoever is brought upon you, take cheerfully, and be patient when you are changed to a lower state. When you are going through such trial and tribulation, be patient and know that Yahuwah is only testing you. Are you worthy, or will you fold? For gold is tried in the fire, and acceptable men in the furnace of adversity. Yes. Yahuwah's children are tried in the furnace of adversity. Right? Hang on. Where did we see that? Alrighty. These are they which came out of great tribulation. Narrow is the gate and troublesome is the way. Tribulation. Furnace of adversity. Yes, yes, yes. So stay strong, mashpaca. Stay upright, walking upon his narrow path. Study his word diligently and shine it bright, exhort it bright upon all of those with eyes to see and ears to hear. Plant those little mustard seeds where you can, and stay true to Yahuah's doctrine, to keeping his commandments, to keeping his appointed times, his Shabbat and his feast set apart, rehearsals for what is to come. Each and every day, devote your life to our Father. Devote your laboring to our Father. Devote your exercise to our Father. Devote your time spent eating to our Father. Devote your mornings and your nights to our Father, to studying his word, to gaining Chokmah and Binah in his Besorah, in his statutes, in his Torah, that you may go out and be but a beacon, a vessel of his, and you are walking upon the straight, narrow path with great strength. All barakah be to Yahuah, our Father. May he barakah each and every one of you as well. Appreciate you guys watching as always. Leave a comment if you enjoyed the video. Make sure to give it a like, sub to the channel, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Shalom, shalom.